Okay, so the third step in this research paper writing process is actually collecting the quotes and textual evidence from your articles that you will eventually use in your paper. Before we just start writing things down, we need to actually go to the sources that we found and read them. As you are reading through them, you should be looking for sentences or quotes that have to do with how the group you've chosen is mistreated or misrepresented, how that mistreatment then affects that group, and then what steps society can take towards a positive change. So in my example, if I'm reading through my article, I see this sentence about disabled people becoming homeless after they were turned out of institutions, right? This mistreatment, this has affected the community because stores and homes and general things in the world were not handicap accessible. So I'm going to highlight this in green because it is the color on my quote sheet that it corresponds to. I highly recommend color coding. You don't have to use the colors that we provided, but it's going to be a lot easier to come back to your citations and your annotations if they are organized in some way. If I continue reading to my next article, I find a sentence about systems that protect white workers against job layoffs, which has to do with the mistreatment of bias in the workplace. So I changed my color and I underlined that in red and wrote a little comment on the side just so I know why I underlined it or highlighted it in the first place. If I then continue to my last source, I see a sentence in there about a positive change enacted by our government in the 1990s with the passing of the American Disabilities Act. And so I've highlighted that in blue, and again, just written in the corner, this represents positive change. Obviously, you guys will be highlighting more than I just did, but this is a sample just to kind of show you what it is we're looking for. Remember that you will be turning in these annotations, so it's important that you go through, take the time to really read your information and make sure that you're finding evidence that is actually going to help you with your paper. If you just highlight random things or copy and paste random quotes, you're going to have a very tough time writing a cohesive paper later. So once I have this information, I'm going to then transfer it over to my quote sheet. So the beauty of doing this digitally is that we can just copy and paste. So I'll copy what I've highlighted, open up my quote sheet, scroll down to the color that it corresponds to, and then paste that information into the corresponding text box, okay? The part that's in blue is the space for you to then comment on what you've added. So for my example, right, this positive change made it legal for all persons, regardless of ability, level, to be treated equally. Okay? So, again, you'll have one or two sentences of explanation as to what your quote is about or has anything to do with. The most important piece of this is keeping track of where your information is coming from. So, I'm going to go back to my source. Maybe. There we go. I'm going to look at the article that I got that from. It's from a database. So what's beautiful about that is that it is already cited in MLA format. So what I can do here is copy and paste this citation right over here, and I'm good. Not all of your articles will have a page number. That's okay. Just write down the amount of information that you can and fill it out to the best of your ability. You will then repeat this process 3 more times for each quote sheet, okay? You do need to find 4 quotes or 4 pieces of evidence for each of these categories. The more relevant quotes you have, the easier it is going to be to choose what ones you actually want to include in your paper. It is way better to have more options to choose from than less. Additionally, if you're reading through your articles and you realize that that they are not necessarily helpful and that you're not finding the information that you need, you can continue to research and find new articles. The most important part is that whatever new information you find, you still include the title and the author, because eventually you will be making a works cited page, and if you don't have that information, you will not be able to make it or correctly cite your sources, and then it's plagiarism and it's a whole thing. So keep track of where your information is coming from. Good luck.